The Blind Tony Story, Book 9, Chapter 5. I'm going to fast forward a little bit now. I have been incarcerated for over a year, and as of yet, I haven't been to court. The wheels of justice move very slowly here if they move at all. I'm sure if I had a lot of money, this would not be the case. But I have what I have, and I am who I am, and it is what it is. I am sure that if I wasn't in custody right now, I would have been brought to court before now, but since they already have me in custody, they don't seem to be in any hurry to get me into the courtroom. So much for the speedy trial rule. Being unable to afford the bail is also a terrible thing. Most of the people who get affected in this way are people of color. I walk in circles on the yard whenever I have access to a yard, and I reflect on how much of an analogy of my whole life is to just walking in circles. Physical circles, mental circles, emotional circles, spiritual circles, financial circles, and even social circles. Reoccurring patterns seemingly producing fruitlessness, and it becomes quite discouraging after a while. But greater is he that's in me than he that's in the world. Satan is a liar, and he only comes to rob, kill, and destroy. And he wants to make me feel like giving up, like everything is just hopeless. But I know that God is the rewarder of those earnestly seeking him, and he will never let the righteous be forsaken. Perseverance under pressure produces endurance, and endurance over a long period of time, especially under adverse conditions, will produce patience. And patience, not in the sense of just waiting, but having peace inside while you wait, produces hope. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. And that's an essential, crucial characteristic of becoming a Christian. Yea, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. I have often wondered over the last year or so if this too has been another year of my life wasted, another year I could have been with mom and dad, being the son I should have been the whole time and never was. Another year I could have been the father for my children that I never was. Another year I could have been closer to my closest friend. But then I stopped and reflect and meditate, and then I realized that not one single day of my entire life has ever been in vain, because every moment was an opportunity to experience God's goodness, even in the darkest places. I haven't had time to wallow in regret and self-pity over the last year because I've been too busy writing this book and reaching out to others in a positive way also. And I'm beginning to purify myself mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, as well as physically. I have been truly blessed. I met a man this year at Hyde Correctional Facility named Mr. Little, and that's his real name. And he has been incarcerated for the last 35 years. He's now 70 years old and was sentenced to 130 something years for possession of stolen property, a gold chain valued at less than $50, and a set of rabbit ears for a TV. So I know I'm blessed. People don't even use rabbit ears no more for a TV. I have personally read Mr. Little's transcripts from his trials, his appeals, and his subsequent motions that have been filed. And as loopholes can sometimes be used to free a guilty party, a loophole can also sometimes be used to keep an innocent person behind bars. Mr. Little was sentenced before the time when they had sentencing guidelines, and everything was done at the judge's discretion. And this particular judge was later implicated in a scandal, and he has refused to even consider amending any of his past decisions because there was no procedural error or violation of ethics. But what about common sense? Mass murders don't even get 135 years. The police admitted that they had known that Mr. Little was not guilty and he was just covering for his girlfriend who was on drugs. Mr. Little didn't want to see her go to jail, so he pleaded guilty to something he did not do so that she would not have to go to jail. And the police acknowledged this. His girlfriend subsequently left him, and so has everybody else in his life that is still alive. He has been locked up for the last 35 years for a TV antenna and a cheap gold chain. Now, he does have a daughter who was a child when he just left. She's now in her 40s, and she has several grandchildren of her own. And Mr. Little was proud of her achievements and his grandchildren's achievements, and he speaks with them with pride. I was blessed by God to be able to write letters for him and to read her letters to him because he can't read. He still has to do 90 more years before he's even eligible for parole. Somebody ought to do something. That's why I'm calling his real name out. When I first met him, I was blessed to be able to share God's message of hope with him, that he's greater than the judicial system or the Department of Corrections. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. Once upon a time when I was at Horton, Mr. Little walked up on two homosexuals who were having sex in the showers, and he informed the guards by a note. But the guards gave the note to the homosexuals who had written and told them who had written it, and a confrontation ensued. And as one of the homosexuals was about to stab Mr. Little, I stepped in between them. Everybody in the pod just sat there frozen, just watching. But they all were my friends. I had witnessed to the homosexuals too. I mean, I loved them too. And on a side note, one of those homosexuals had a wife and children that visit him faithfully every weekend. They had no idea the life this guy was living behind the wall. This is indication of the kind of decadence that surrounds us everywhere we go, and why diseases like AIDS are so rampant. I got the chance to tell Mr. Little all about Joseph, who was betrayed by his brothers and falsely in prison for many years, and how God was able to take that terrible wrong and turn it into a powerful right and a blessing for everybody. I also got the chance to show him the love of Christ up close and personal through my daily walk. Action speaks much louder than words. So why am I getting locked up? In a lot of ways, has not been good for me. It has served to bring God much glory and also to upbuild and edify many others. In jail and prison, you're under a microscope constantly. Everybody's waiting for you to slip so they can say, see, I told you so. Another counterfeit Christian. Anyway, I'm just glad that God upheld me in strength and has not allowed me to falter. I have been a doer as well as a hearer of the word in here. I was housed in the Easington jail for many months, and I slept on the top bunk. On the bottom bunk slept a 19-year-old boy named Scott, another real name. He had agreed to a plea bargain deal, 10 to 20 years, for beating a man to death with a baseball bat. The man he beat to death was the dealer who supplied his mother with crack cocaine. Often the night, Scott would moan and sleep and cry out for his mother, and I would wake him up and we would talk and pray. And I would tell him about God's mercy, his long sufferance, his patience, his love, his forgiveness, and his ability to make all things new. I also told him about the peace that surpasses all understanding that's available through God. And we began a regular routine of Bible reading and prayer and fasting. Sometimes we would fast for a whole week. I told him that some demons can only be overcome by intensified warfare, denying the flesh. His whole demeanor changed, and people started calling him Little Preacher Man. That boy definitely does not need to be in jail for the next 15 to 20 years. It would do him more harm than good. He's just a scared kid who wanted his mother back. Loved his mother so much that he was willing to do anything to get her off them drugs. I told him about my life on drugs and how they made me do a lot of things that I didn't want to do. He asked me if I thought that his mother still loved him because the state refused to let them have any communications at all. That's probably the one thing that they both could benefit from more than anything else right about now. The love that they have for each other. Scott has been sitting in that local jail for well over a year just waiting to get to court to get his sentence activated since he made the deal. As I said before, the wheel of justice turns very slowly if they turn it on. You know, I am currently being housed in Hertford detention center. I have been moved so many times because I'm outspoken. I have been moved repeatedly because I've been considered a troublemaker and outspoken because I spoke out in Edenton about having to wait a week to send out a letter because they didn't have any stamps and the post office was right across the street, less than 50 feet away. Right across the street. I also spoke out about 4 men being housed in a 2-man cell with 2 men sleeping on mats on the floor that you had to step across in order to use the toilet. And hopefully you won't pee on them or their possessions. And it's also quite degrading to have to move your bowels. The doors are locked. It's unsanitary, breathing other people's vapors and germs that close, especially when they cough. And some people's hygiene just isn't up to par. There's a common day room area designed to hold about 7 or 8 inmates, but this area too is occupied by inmates sleeping on the floor. In the daytime hours, from 8 to 3 p.m., all the doors are locked. Individual cell doors are locked, and everybody's forced into the day room area together. No mats are allowed on the floors. You must find a spot on the concrete floor where you sit all day long till 3 p.m. Unless you're lucky or unlucky to get one of the 4 metal stools at the table. Everyone's sitting there on the concrete floor looking stupid with nothing to do. No way to avoid the negative conversations or confrontations. No fresh air, no room to move. If you have hemorrhoids, it's no good. And if you don't have hemorrhoids, you probably will when you leave. You can't even access your own cell. No pens are allowed. Paper is limited. Only these little putt-putt golf pencils are allowed, which the guards hate to sharpen. And you're allowed to get 2 15-minute visits per week. Only 4 names on your business list. And all your mail is read and sent out in envelopes that identify you as an inmate. Now, maybe these things wouldn't be so bad if you were being punished or had been convicted of a crime. But if your only offense is your inability to afford the bail, then this can be quite dehumanizing and degrading, especially when the days turn into weeks and the weeks turn into months and the months start turning into years and you still haven't even been to court yet. Say la vie. God will not let the righteous be forsaken, and he will not give you more than you're able to bear. So I'm going to count it all joy. This too shall pass. And I believe that all things will eventually work out for my good. Work out for the good of those who love the Lord and are called according to his purposes, which I consider myself one of them. Also, those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings like eagles, and they'll run and not get tired. So I read my Bible every chance I get, and I minister to others without reservation. And I wait on the Lord, getting stronger every day. My case is a story all by itself. I went into a gas station, and when I came out, my car was surrounded by policemen. I was slammed on the hood of the car, handcuffed, and given no explanation at all. After about 40 minutes went by, And I kept protesting. I was told that the clerk in the gas station had called the police because I had looked like a man who had been in the store stealing cigarettes a couple of weeks earlier. After they carefully reviewed the surveillance tapes, it was agreed upon by the clerk and the police that I was not that man. But instead of being given an apology and release, I was told by the police that I was going to be arrested anyway because I didn't belong on the streets based on my past record. So they charged me with a bunch of crimes, which I don't know what they are because I haven't been charged officially yet. My vehicle was searched and they said contraband was found. They didn't state what it was. But whatever it was an illegal search anyway. You know, 6 months after I was arrested, the head officer in my case was arrested himself for planting false evidence. And it came out that he had been on the Terrell County Police Department prior to being hired by Edenton. And he had been dismissed from Terrell County for suspicion of planting false evidence and brutality. Prior to Terrell County, he had been hired and fired from Bertie County. And this guy is still in his 20s. His name is Michael Aaron Davidson. You know, I wonder how many people he sent away without cause. But the Bible says everything done in the darkness comes to the light. And this was that proven true. I saw him on the TV being arrested while I was laying in my cell. You know, and they said there was no surveillance video of my arrest, even though there were 3 police cars. Nobody had their video cams. It was all broke, they said. The gas station should have a tape, though, from their surveillance cameras. That plus the clerk's testimony should be enough to free me, hopefully. Many a night I have prayed to God, if possible, God, please let this cup pass from me, but nevertheless, not my will, but thy being done. And I knew it had to be divine intervention once again. I had no idea I was going to stop at that gas station. It was a random choice. Why that particular gas station? Why that particular clerk? Why those specific police officers? I believe God had a plan and it will all work out eventually for my good. You know, no discipline is pleasant in the present, but it always yields positive results. But still, it's been well over a year now, and I haven't been to court yet. I can't afford a lawyer. And my court appointed lawyer, I've only seen once, and that was 7 months ago. He said he was going to file a motion to suppress the evidence based on the illegal search. Lack of probable cause. But I haven't seen or heard from him since. I'm now being housed in the Hertford County Detention Center, where I was moved to. And they have a little yard where I can walk sometimes and get to see the sun and breathe fresh air. Life is good. There are private and semi-private cells. No one sleeps on the floors here. You can get to play dominoes, chess, cards, checkers, read books. They have a library here. You can watch TV. Each room has a writing table with its own sink and toilet. You can purchase pens and paper here. The showers are clean, the water's hot, the food is adequate. The envelopes do not identify you as an inmate, and you can seal up your letters without the guards reading them. Jail is not supposed to be a nice place, but relatively speaking, this one was pretty nice. And I'm truly thankful for God's mercy once again. The only drawback is that it's too far for Mom and Dad to come and visit. But that's okay. We communicate regularly by the phone and through the mail. I ask myself, if I'm set free after all this time, has this whole last year and change been wasted? And the answer is no. God is still allowing me to serve him in a powerful way. And I continue to praise him and lift him up wherever I go. We began a Bible study here yesterday. just the inmates. 7 people attended. It was excellent. So even though I'm still going in circles, I realize also that circles can represent continuity, completeness, and a returning over and over again to that which we consider to be true, that which we know. And that's exactly what God does. We stray all the time, but He calls us, and we know His voice, and we run back to His loving arms because we know His grace and mercy and love are always there and infinite. I was going in circles in the city. My life was going nowhere. So when I talked to my brother, he suggested that maybe, just maybe, I might want to consider going to North Carolina to help out mom and dad in their old age. I could be an asset to them, but they could also be an asset to me too. So my brother drove from Atlantic City to the Bronx and took me to North Carolina. And I only packed 2 suitcases and left everything else in New York, in that apartment. And I moved in with mom and dad. Life was good.